I was trying to.
Okay, so Bhagavad Gita 2.2, we were discussing this second verse. Please sing after me. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha.
Hmm. Um, you have it sharing the page.
Can you see now?
Yes, yes.
Shri Bhagwan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Kutastava Kashmalamidam Vishme Samupasthitam.
Kutastva Kashmalamidam Vishame Samupasthitam
Anarya Jushtama Swargyam Akirti Karamarjuna.
Vishame Samupasthitam
Anarya Jushtama Swargyam. Yes.
Anayagjustama Svargyam
Kirti Karamarjuna.
Akirtikaramajum.
Beautiful. So we were reading Prabhupada's purport and we saw many things here. So let's just revise those. We saw that how a person can realize, can understand about God in three levels. As Brahma, Brahman, Brahman, Paramatma, and God Himself. So we saw Brahman is the effulgence emanating from the transcendental body of Krishna. And Paramatma is second stage where Paramatma is neutral. Paramatma does not show any affection to his devotees. He remains neutral. He just sanctions the desire. But Krishna, God, he reciprocates with his devotees, and because devotees they have bhakti, so they experience ecstatic love by serving Krishna. So according to different consciousness, one experience different levels. So these three levels are non-different from Krishna. They are part of Krishna. Light is part of Krishna, and Paramatma is also uh, a part of Krishna, Ansha. So, like that, according to different levels of consciousness, one experience different levels. So, Brahmavadi, who is experiencing Brahman, he is not experiencing Paramatma. He is only limited till Brahman. And same as Paramatma, he is able to experience Brahman and Paramatma. He is not experiencing God. But devotees of God, of Krishna, because we are directly targeting Krishna, so we realize other levels automatically, Brahman and Paramatma. So like that. Then later we saw that how absolute truth is Sachidanand. Sachidanand means eternal. Actually, we will see this part today also. But yes, then we saw example of sun, sunshine, the surface, and the planet sun itself. So now you can imagine. See, Prabhupada said here, one who can enter into the sun planet is the highest. So we saw sunshine, experiencing sunshine means Brahman, surface means Paramatma, and one who is entering sun is the highest. So now people cannot even think, they can not even imagine if they can enter into the planet sun. So it's very elevated consciousness who is serving God, who is serving Krishna, understanding him as a personality, understanding that I can also have relationship with God. So it's very highest consciousness. I was hearing a lecture yesterday of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it was mentioned there that a person who is practicing Krishna consciousness, he has gone through many stabs in his eternal life. Only then now he has reached at a point where he is convinced, where he has faith that God is a person and he's practicing Krishna consciousness. So it's not ordinary, it's highest. It's not ordinary consciousness to accept God as a person. So, yes, let's continue. Then later we saw that how ordinary students who are satisfied by simply understanding the sunshine, its universal pervasiveness, and the glaring effulgence of its impersonal nature may be compared to those who can realize only Brahman feature of the absolute truth. So we discussed these points also. One very important point one should understand that God does not come from light. Light emanates from the body of God, transcendental body of Krishna. But it's not that Krishna came from the light. And many people assume like this, that God is someone who comes from light, from Brahman. We can easily understand this with sun example. We can not say that sun is coming from its sunshine, isn't it? Sunshine comes from sun. We cannot say that sun is coming from sunshine. So it's completely bogus. People saying that God comes from light. Light is just a part of God, is effulgence of body. So like that. Okay, then we discuss more points. We already saw by Parashar Muni what he said, that Bhagwan is one who possesses all the opulences. Do you remember all those 6 opulences? Let's see if you can name them.
Knowledge.
Complete knowledge.
Complete knowledge. Complete beauty. Complete strength. Complete wealth. Complete renunciation.
Yes. And one more point.
Yeah, strength. Strength.
Strength you have done. Yes, strength you have said. And one more. Fame. Fame? Assuming it. Yes, so complete fame. Krishna is all famous.
And fame. Mhm.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So, initially it was very difficult for me to remember these 6, but it's nice you remember them all. Okay. So later, yes, we were actually here. No living entity, including Brahma, Lord Shiva, or Narayana, can possess opulences as fully as Krishna. So please understand, Lord Brahma is also a living entity and he can never be powerful as Krishna. Lord Shiva is not living entity, but let me explain you. I don't know if you heard about it later or not, earlier or not, but Lord Shiva is also manifestation of Lord Vishnu, but when Lord Vishnu manifests him and when he touches uh, illusory energy, then that is Lord Shiva. But we cannot say Lord Shiva is, Lord Vishnu. It's different tattva. It's neither God nor living entity. It comes somewhere in mid. And no one can become Lord Shiva people can become Lord Brahma. If you desire to become Lord Brahma, you can also become, but one cannot become Lord Shiva. Yes.
Did you say illusory energy?
Yes, Maya Devi.
Uh-huh. So is this because, this is where I get a little bit confused. So, Lord's internal potency
Yes, illusory energy
is
is also eternal, but there are two energies. One is external and one is eternal. Eternal is Srimati Radharani. Internal.
internal.
Internal. Yes, internal. And
So,
external is illusory, Maya Devi.
uh, so, um, so when Shiva is related, Lord Shiva related, is this where Ma Durga and how is um expansion of other energies, how it relates to Lord Shiva, or is that separate? This is where I'm not too sure how it is. I get confused.
So, Goddess Durga is also illusory energy only. The deity is illusory energy itself. So, Lord Shiva is one who touches illusory energy of Krishna. But it's not like that, Lord Shiva become bewildered like us. Like we become affected by illusory energy of Krishna. It's not the case with Lord Shiva. It's just he touches her.
Mhm.
But Krishna, he can never touch illusory energy. Uh, so yes, that's why he's gone.
Mhm. So I was wondering because, like, you know, form of Sri Krishna as Vishnu, he carries Mother Lakshmi in his heart,
Yes.
and Lord Brahma is um he gave birth because of his knowledge to Mother Saraswati from because he very briefly mentions. So I don't have.
So Lord
Uh,
Brahma, he took birth from the navel of Lord Vishnu, from
mhm.
the lotus. Yes. So,
uh, mhm.
mhm.
And so Lord Shiva, is he related to this exterior, illusory energy somehow, like the Shakti, like Parvati?
Yes, Parvati is also Maya Devi only. It's just different
Ah,
names.
I see. That makes sense. So the feminine energy in this can be,
Yes.
yes, yes. It can be tricky, I imagine, for this subject.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay, but anyways, just understand Lord Shiva is not living entity and he's not God. He comes somewhere in mid. Lord
mhm,
Brahma is living entity. And
mhm.
Lord Narayan is Krishna only, but now please understand Krishna in the form of Narayan by his own will do not release his powers completely. Just like we learned yesterday, six extra qualities: Leela Madhuri, Venu Madhuri, Prema Madhuri. So all that Lord Narayan can also perform like this, but Krishna by his own will do not release his these powers or qualities completely as he do as Krishna. But it's not like that Lord Narayan or Lord Vishnu or other incarnations are less powerful than Krishna. Let's understand this with an example. Suppose a judge in the court, so suppose in his when he's with his family members, so he will be, he will speak lovingly with his family members, with his, you know, grandson. He will he will behave very compassionately, very sweetly with him. But it's not the same case in the court. When he is in the court as judge, so he will have to speak heavy, harsh words against culprit. Right. So same is the case here. Krishna, uh, he does not act same as he acts as Krishna in other incarnations. So it's just the matter of different rasas. Person is the same, but it's just the
Mhm.
matter of different rasa. That's it.
Okay.
So I hope now it's more clear.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's go ahead. Therefore, it is concluded in the Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma himself that Lord Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. No one is equal to or above him. He is the primeval Lord or Bhagwan, known as Govinda, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. Now, please sing after me. Ishvara Parama Krishna
Ishvara Parama Krishna
Satchidananda Vigraha
Sachidananda Vigraha
Anadiradir Govinda
Anadiradir Govinda
Sarvakarana Karanam.
Sarvakarana Karanam.
Yes. So this verse is from Brahma Samhita, and Brahma ji is saying this, Lord Brahma. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagwan in some, quantity. That's why we say Bhagwan Shiv, or other demigods also we address them as Bhagwan because they are possessing the qualities of Bhagwan in some ratio, in some quantity. But Krishna is the supreme because none can excel him. He is the supreme person and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. Now, do you know Brahma Samhita is all about Lord Brahma. So from where Lord Brahma know this knowledge, whatever he's saying or mentioning it in his Brahma Samhita? Can you guess?
So is this where originally he didn't know where he came from because he was on his own and he was um performing tapasya to to understand the Lord
Yes, okay.
and then
But question
when
is
he
like
says
how he knows about these features of Lord.
he mm, maybe you can explain better. I think I
So
would
yeah,
only
general answer is God told him. Krishna told him. We are hearing in
bottom.
disciplic succession. So Krishna gave knowledge to Brahma, Brahma gave to Narad Muni gave to this, that, like this. But this, whatever we read in Brahma Samhita, it's actually not just the knowledge. It's the realization of Brahma. It's not he heard it from Krishna that, oh, Krishna is telling, I'm supreme person, my body is eternal. Okay, Krishna might have told him, but Brahma Samhita is realization of Brahma. When he's saying Krishna is supreme person, his body is eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. then he's actually realizing it, he's experiencing it. And Krishna is giving him that realization, of course, because Krishna was pleased from him, because he followed the instructions of Krishna. Tapa. He said, Tapa, tapa. You do tapasya. Then he did tapasya. And Krishna was pleased. And then he got realizations. So Brahma Samhita is actually the realizations of Brahma about Krishna.
Mhm.
So it's very beautiful.
Okay, so I'm understanding this correctly. So the in the knowledge passed down as parampara, it comes from the Lord, and that he got from him, just like what you were saying. Um, he passed on to Narad Muni and so on, and Vyasa and so on. Um, Specifically, Brahma Samhita is his realization. So this is what is the difference?
True.
Ah, okay, okay.
It's not like that whatever we hear about God is all, they are all the realization of Brahma. No, it's not like that. Only Brahma Samhita is his realization.
Uh-huh. Oh, I see. Just the Brahma Samhita. Mhm.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, where um beautiful music, Govindam Adipurusham is in Brahma Samhita. Is it?
True, true.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, so nice.
So, yes, he is the supreme person. His body is eternal. His body is full of knowledge. Now, can you imagine this? The body itself is full of knowledge. It's gyan mein. Just like we see sun. So sun is agni mein. Agni means fire and mein means full. So which is full of fire, which is full of uh, brightness or light. That is sun. So same as Krishna's transcendental body is full of knowledge. His transcendental body itself is full of knowledge. It is itself full of bliss. It is itself eternal. So that person is supreme. One person, a great philosopher, said that God is someone to whom no one can control, and that person is Krishna. He is Swarat. No one can control him, but he controls everyone. So, everyone is actually a puppet doll. Do you understand that? Puppet doll. So, everyone is
Um,
puppet doll in hands of Krishna. We are completely dependent on him. We can never do anything by our own will. Shall we move ahead?
yes, please.
In the Bhagavatam also, there is a list of many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Krishna is described as the original personality of Godhead, from whom many, many incarnations and personalities of Godhead expand. Now, please sing after me. Ete chansha kala pumsa
Itikam shakala pumsa
Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam
Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam
Indrari Vyakulam Lokam
Indradi Vyakulam Lokam
Nridayanti Yuge Yuge.
Mridayanti Yuge Yuge.
So now this verse is in Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's by Suta Goswami. Let's see. All the lists of the incarnations of Godhead submitted herewith are either plenary expansions or parts of plenary expansions of Supreme Godhead. Plenary expansions are, Vishnu Tattva, incarnations of Krishna, or plenary expansions, parts of plenary expansions like Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Shirodakshai Vishnu, Karanodakshai Vishnu. So they are parts of plenary expansions of Lord. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.28. Now, Sud Goswami, he first, in third chapter, he listed all the names of Krishna's incarnations. But then later, again, he quoted this verse so that people may not misunderstand that Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu Swarupas. So that's why now to basically confirm that Krishna is Lord himself, he quoted this verse that whatever names I've told so far, they are incarnations of Godhead, either plenary expansions or parts of plenary expansions, but Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead himself. So it was very interesting. He was fearful that, oh, although I listed all the names of all the incarnations, but what if people misunderstand that Krishna is actually an incarnation of these Svarupas? So then he quoted this verse. So, yes. Therefore, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. You want to say something?
Um, just so plenary expansions are the Vishnu Tattva,
Yes.
and parts of the plenary expansions.
The expansions of Vishnu Tattva. So
Okay.
have you seen that chart? Maybe I will show you that chart if it's safe. There's a flow chart, and in that chart, all the incarnations of Krishna, expanded forms are there. Yes, I found it. So, can you see it?
The the chapter is still. Okay.
Can you see
Ah,
now?
yes.
So yes, this is a flow chart, and you can see in this flow chart there are many. See, Swayam Rupa is Krishna himself. You can see his photo here. The original form of
Mhm.
Krishna is cowherd boy in Vrindavan. Then he expands himself as Balaram, and also another two forms basically. This is Vasudeva, who took birth from Devaki, and this is Balaram. So now from this Balaram, Lord Balaram, comes other Vishnu Tattvas, which you can see here. Lord Narayan is also there. So Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumn, Anirudh. Then comes Lord Narayan. Then from Lord Narayan again comes Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumn, Anirudh. And then you can see just like this, these are plenary portions, and parts of plenary portions means expanded forms of even these forms. Just like you can see here, Karanodakshai Vishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Shirodakshai Vishnu. Then comes Avesha. Avesha means Shaktavesh avatar means, Krishna, he gives some potency to other beings as well. So they have some potencies like Narad Muni is there, and just like there are many,
Mm.
you know,
Like
Lord Brahma,
empowered.
Lord Brahma is also there, and there are many.
Mm.
So yes, this is very helpful chart.
Yeah, that's very good to read because um yeah, aspiring devotees start to understand about creation or like when this comes up of his expansions and then to have that chart is just very nice. Yeah, thanks for showing that,
Yes.
Mataji.
Okay, let's move ahead. Therefore, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, the source of both the Super Soul and impersonal Brahman. Super Soul is Paramatma, impersonal Brahman is that light, effulgence light. Effulgence. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna's lamentation for his kinsmen is certainly unbecoming, and therefore Krishna expressed his surprise with the word Kuta, where from? Such impurities were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of men known as Aryans. So we saw Anarya Jushtam, Arya Jushtam. So see, Swadharma means following our Swadharma means for us devotees, it is practicing whatever process being told to us by Prabhupada, by Krishna. So Swadharma means even if any discomfort we feel, we do it because it's our Swadharma. Just like, people, they assume that their Swadharma is to maintain their family nicely. So you will see that man who is earning for his family, so even he feels discomfort or many difficulties, but then also he go out and he work hard so that he may maintain his family nicely, he may fulfill the desires of his children, his wife. So he assumes it as his swadharma, and then he follows it, if even if there is any discomfort, instead of making excuses. So same way, Swadharma means even if any discomfort we feel, then also we do it instead of making any excuses. So just like for devotees, in winters also, in summers also, devotees go in temple for Mangala Aarti morning program, and in winters also they go, or in summers also we wake up early in the morning, and in winters also we wake up early in the morning so that we may chant. So whatever discomfort we feel, it is tapa. Tapa doesn't mean that a person, a devotee is waking up at 8 a.m. and then he's practicing different asanas. Do you understand asana? Yoga asana.
Is a
Different.
pose?
Yes, exactly. So that is not tapa.
Mhm.
Tapa is something which help us to progress in our spiritual life.
Mhm.
So if one is not following that, then that is anarya jushtam. If one is not waking up early in morning or chanting or reading Bhagavad Gita, then that would be anarya jushtam.
Oh yeah, that came up yesterday, didn't it? Anarya. And what kind of dharma is called
Swadharma.
when
Swadharma. Swa means my, dharma means dharma. So my dharma is
um,
that I please Krishna.
Okay, that's good to know because then also you can um go ahead. We can go ahead and um yeah, just keep going.
Yeah, so it's very important. So even, if someone is saying, "Oh, I don't feel like chanting," then that is an Arya because even if we feel discomfort, then also we practice it, then that is Arya and that is tapa. That will give us benefit. So tapa, another definition of tapa means denying the interest of senses. Senses will, our mind will, tell us that, oh, it's okay, you can sleep more today, you can chant later. But no, denying the interest of senses and mind is tapa. Okay. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know that the aim of life is realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagwan, and they are captivated by the external features of the material world. And therefore, they do not know what liberation is. Persons who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called non Aryans or Anarya. Although Arjuna was a Kshatriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. So, how we can apply in devotee's life? We can see, although that person is devotee, but he is not offering food to Krishna. Today only, one devotee was debating from me about prasadam thing. It's a practice, or let's say, devotees has made this practice by their own. Then that if they are not offering food to Krishna, then they say Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu thrice, and then they assume that, oh, this food has become prasad. But this is not coming from authorized, uh, it's not mentioned something in scripture, or is it not, or it is not told by Prabhupada. So
Um,
so it's not true. I can read it for you from the article of Prabhupada because I read it. And today in Yashomati Mataji group only this discussion is going. So I also quoted it there. And then Yashomati Mataji was happy because she was also saying that this is not coming from authorized source. So
I understood that did they say from demigod um event or something they offered with so much love then that was being said Vishnu three times, but you're gonna tell us that is is not the correct way to do it.
exactly. Did you read it in
uh
the chat?
I Yes, I was wondering if I misunderstood.
No, it was true. When Prabhuji raised this question that, I go in some festival of Lord Ganesha, then they offer some sweets, so I could not
Yeah.
refuse. So I accepted. I say, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, and then I consume it. So this is not the way. Let me read it for you. Some
Okay.
devotees some devotees developed the practice of taking food that had not been offered and simply saying Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu three times, assuming it would become prasadam. When Srila Prabhupada saw a devotee doing this, he asked, "What are you doing?" The devotee explained that this was the practice. Srila Prabhupada replied, Shri Vishnu three times is connected with Achman, purifying water. Do you understand Achman? We do
No.
Achman. You don't know Achman? So we do
Uh,
Achman thrice, and we say Sri Vishnu to purify the water, and that way we purify ourselves, and only then we can worship deities. So it's a process of deity worship. So yes, he said it's a process of purifying water, and not it is not applicable with offering food. Thus, using it to make food into prasadam was described as a speculation and not an authorized process. So
um,
it's very important.
okay. Yeah, I definitely misunderstood because I was understanding that in some exceptions, you can say Sri Vishnu thrice and then, as an like an emergency. So you say it's only to purify
Water,
water and before the deities, not at temple, at home or
both temple and home.
okay. Because um yeah, I guess so what is the name of the
Achman,
you
Achman.
Achman, okay. And this is Sanskrit word, Achman.
Not sure. Probably it's
It's
Hindi
really
word.
okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So, hmm. So yes, I was explaining to him, and he was, accepting it. But then also he said that I don't wish to follow everything. That's why I'm doing like this, that. So yes, again, it's matter of, like, anyways. So we should understand that Krishna is the ultimate possessor, proprietor of everything. So if we are offering directly something to demigods, then we are assuming them independently from Krishna. And this is second offense of holy name if we are offering directly something to demigods, because demigods are not the proprietor, they are also living beings. And yes, first we should offer everything to Krishna and then only. And it's really not a problem in West because people are not serving demigods there, so it's a relief there. In India it's too much, people are so much confused here. So yes, let's move ahead. Such deviation, yes, so we were seeing, so although Arjuna was a Kshatriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. This act of cowardice is described as befitting the non-Aryans. Such deviation from duty does not help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in this world. Lord Krishna did not approve of the so called compassion of Arjuna for his kinsman. So it was very nice. Now, I also wish to discuss commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti. It's very short, but it's linked. And because, my instructing master also discussed that commentary. So let's do that also. We have 15 minutes. So I hope you are okay with that.
Yes, because Srila Prabhupada's purports are very common to find, but when you bring up these ones, it's very interesting for me because um, I cannot get anywhere else. So you're very, exclusive.
So can you see the screen? I'm showing the commentary.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. So Bhagwan said, in this second chapter, Lord Sri Krishna explains the discrimination between the self and the body. And through this, I will zoom it. Hmm. And through this,
Mhm.
knowledge, he destroys Arjuna's grief and delusion. This verse describes the initial symptoms of that grief and delusion. Now, this is very important, self and the body. So, the only grief of a person, the reason of one's grief is that he is identifying himself with this body. So, yes, in this chapter, Krishna explains the discrimination between the self and the body. Through this knowledge, he destroys Arjuna's grief and delusion. This verse describes the initial symptoms of that grief and delusion. The word Kashmalam means delusion, and Vishme refers to this critical battlefield situation. The word Kutaha means what reason, and Samupasthitam means has come from you or has taken shelter in you. The expression Anarya Jushtam means unworthy of noble persons or disapproved by the noble. So you can see Anarya Jushtam is not something which we think. Very beautifully, a devotee said that offense is not something which what we think. Offense is what God thinks. So, and what are offenses or what is, unworthy of noble persons? It is already mentioned in scriptures. So here, when Arjuna, he was, withdrawing from his duties, so it was not approved by Krishna. And same as when, we got human form of life, and instead of serving Krishna or understanding our relationship with him, people, they are, busy in satisfying their own senses, and other people, that is not approved by Krishna. Asvargyam akirti karam means that which does not lead to heaven and destroys one's faith. Now let's see the commentary. So, there is a spelling mistake here. It's not Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan, it's Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti. So, ChatGPT, he did mistake here. So, but commentary is same. There is no problem in the commentary. So let's see. Knowing that before the battle, Arjuna's heart had become inclined toward a mistaken sense of religious duty, he became very pleased. Influenced by the maxim, Ahimsa Paramo Dharma, non-violence is the highest religion, Arjuna was turning away from battle. Deep within his mind, he thought, if this battle does not take place, the kingdom established by my forefathers will remain secure and undisturbed. Although Krishna understood Arjun's inner thoughts, he outwardly said, how has this delusion come upon you? In this way, with great skill, he crushed Arjuna's hidden expectations and assumptions. So when Arjuna, he was saying all those things, so he might be thinking, oh, Krishna would be very pleased from me. I am, very compassionate heart. I have compassionate heart. And yeah, Krishna would praise me for this. But no, he crushed Arjuna's hidden expectations and assumptions by saying these words. Even upon seeing Arjuna in such a condition, Lord Krishna did not neglect him. Rather, just he had previously slain the demon Madhu while remaining true to his own nature of destroying the wicked, he now resolved to slay Arjuna's inner enemy, his delusion. And actually, this delusion is our delusion. So, yes. So, see, Here, Shemam, there was some word here which means attachment. So, attachment is something, attachment, or in Hindi it is called moh. Moh means actually not attachment, sorry, delusion. Delusion is moh. So, delusion is something that whatever we are not, we are assuming that we are that particular thing. So, when we are assuming ourselves with this body, so we are actually not this body, but then also a person is identifying himself with this body, then that is delusion. So delusion means anything exists and you are not able to see that thing in its real state. So we are not this body, but we always keep identifying ourselves with this body. For example, people say that, oh, I am suffering from fever. I am soul, and soul can never suffer, but I am suffering from fever. So this is delusion. If any person is saying that this body is suffering from fever, then that is in some extent is good thing. He's actually not identifying himself with this body. Or sometimes many times we say that my hand is paining. We never say that me hand is paining. Me means because we are not this hand,
Mm.
so this is a part. So my hand is paining, or this is my liver, or these are my eyes. So this is good. Actually, he's saying this is my. Actually, this is also delusion because these are not ours. This body have been given to us for some time. But yes, basically, delusion means that we are not seeing a particular thing in its real state. That is delusion. So, because Arjuna, he was identifying himself with this body for sure, and when he was seeing his kinsmen, so again, he was identifying, it was his false ego. He was identifying that, and he was distressed that how can I kill my own kinsmen? So, this was the reason of him becoming or overwhelming with grief. So, see, when we assume ourselves as body, then there would be grief for sure. Because things related to this body or this body is constantly changing, it's constantly transforming. You can see this. You are not the same person you were, last day. So, and you are not the same. I was seeing, I attend a yoga class. There is a girl, she teaches yoga. So, I was watching a recording where, she was taking class. It was around 4 years back, and she was looking so young. I mean, right now also she looks young, but in those videos, she was looking very young and like a teenager, although she was around 35, but that time she was looking like a teenager. Now she's around 40, so now also she looks young, but she is not looking same as she was looking in those videos. So you can see this body is constantly changing. So grief would always be there if we are identifying ourselves with this body and things. So that is delusion. He desired that Arjuna kill his external enemies in battle without any attachment to the hope of obtaining a kingdom. Sanjay then continues describing Lord Krishna's powerful words. Fighting such a righteous war is the natural duty of Kshatriya. Why then are you turning away from your own duty? There is one Maharaj of ISKCON. He was saying it. Do you understand Hinjra?
No.
Okay, Kinnar? No? Okay, if let me tell in simple words, English. The person who has neutral gender, he is neither female nor male. You know, in Sanskrit, we call it napusakling if you read it. Neutral.
Okay.
Neutral
Mhm,
gender.
mhm,
So, neutral gender is not considered good in society. You already know this. One should be male or female. So, yes, Maharaj was explaining it in this way that Krishna was saying to Arjuna that why have you accepted such neutral genderism? So means Krishna was very displeased from Arjuna when he was behaving in such a way, and he was overwhelmed with grief. And this is actually applicable with on us as well. We are following, this path, and with some external factors, if we get affect from those external factors so much that we quit our bhakti or we stop chanting, then it is considered to be accepting neutral genderism. I know it's very heavy, but some striking points and heavy points we should hear so that we may not deviate. At least I
mhm,
really like such heavy points because it helps us to raise our standard, to take bhakti for serious. So it's important. So yes, Krishna
mm,
was not pleased. That when then why then are you turning away from your own duty? By fighting this righteous battle, you will attain liberation, heaven, and lasting fame. To abandon such a battle is ignoble. So, if Krishna is talking to you, with us, with devotees, by following Krishna consciousness like this, or by fighting this battle with Maya, with illusory energy of Krishna, will attain, you will attain liberation, you will attain my love, Krishna's love of Godhead, and you will come back to me. You'll go back to Krishna. Lasting fame. So, lasting life. You will always, be there with Krishna then. But to abandon such a battle is ignoble, opposed to the Vedas, contrary to noble conduct, and destructive of both spiritual welfare and worldly honor. So, yes, this was about the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti. And yes, now we'll conclude our session here. If you wish to add on something, please go ahead.
yeah, thank you very much. Um, yeah, I'm coming to understand that things that we assume that, oh, that's just normal and makes sense to feel in a certain way. And even then, we still are not understanding. Like for in my situation, that's how I'm seeing it because that's a very good example. Well, that's a good statement to say, from a neutral point of view, is vague. It's not clear. And like in languages, I was sharing with you, I like languages. So sometimes you understand some, meaning of things better. And, like many languages, they have um, when you refer to something, and you use an article, or a particle, you can have the female form, and you can have masculine form, like to refer to. even to animals and people and things, but there's also neutral. And and I think neutral is sometimes when you don't know. And in English, it's not, it doesn't seem to have this because it just has the. So we don't know, oh, okay, so is it female or is it masculine or what is it? But there is that particle it. So if I refer to it something with, I and T, we don't know. So like if I refer to say a squirrel, or some animal that I see or a bird, and I say it because we don't know is it a bird that can have um chicks, or is it just a male? So we don't know. So there's ignorance there. And I was also having difficulty understanding is why is the mode of ignorance, or like if too much sleep, or to be relaxed or think of the past, why is it bad? And actually, or like too much thinking ahead, mode of passion. And actually I'm trying, it's because of different ways that I'm seeing things now, and reading Bhagavad Gita, that you need to have a clear vision, clear understanding, and like the mode of goodness, um sattvic, is that you're understanding the truth, and then you can get to transcendental. So I don't know if I'm making sense, but I can see that Arjun's position can represent us because we're just so confused sometimes, and we think, oh no, but I'm doing the right thing, and actually, um, it's not that simple. That's what I'm realizing. So it's good to have all these points of view, from the acharyas and scripture. Yeah. I
So
mean,
yes,
this is what
basically,
I'm doing.
scriptures tells us, especially Bhagavad Gita, is showing us standard that where we are and where we should raise ourselves. So especially Bhagavad Gita shows us standards, like how we should live our life to whatever results we are expecting to really reach to that goal, to really achieve those results, how we should follow things.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. And also I wanted to ask you, since um offering food before we're going to eat came up um, today. So is what is because this is something that we have to do every day. Of course, sometimes we fast and then, our attention is elsewhere. But and like I don't have many meals anyway. I have very light sometimes in the morning, and I just, I don't like to eat too many times in the day. Um, but then when you have your main meal and you are at home, how do you do it? And then if you um so like if you go to Govinda's restaurant, do you assume it's already prasadam, or do you still need to do something? Uh, how
So
how do
yes.
you do?
So first of all, do you have a DT or photo in your house?
Yes, yes, yes.
Photo.
I have many. Yes.
So
Like
you have
photo of
photo,
Shri Krishna.
you have photo of Prabhupada?
Yes.
Yes, so first of all, we three times we recite the pranam mantra of Prabhupada. Then three times we recite the pranam mantra of Lord Chaitanya. And then three times we recite the pranam mantra of Lord Krishna. Then after reciting it, like keeping the plate, whatever meal, and plates of Krishna's should be separate. We should not offer in those plates in which we eat. Krishna's plates should be separate in which we offer him. Okay. And yes, we put plate, we put food, then we put tulsi leaf, then we recite those mantras,
Mm,
which I just told you. Then at last you recite Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and then you can say a prayer from your heart that, oh Krishna, thank you so much for providing all the ingredients, the process that I could cook for you today. Now I offer you this meal. Please accept my humble offerings, my Lord, and may you be pleased. This is what I say. And then you can, leave that place. If you have curtain, then you can put curtain. Otherwise, you can leave that room for about 5-10 minutes. And then before entering to that room, you can knock, and then you enter, and then you clap three times, and then you can take that plate. You can empty that in your plates in which you eat. Don't eat in those plates because those plates are of Krishna. And then that way you can have prasad.
okay. Because yeah, thank you. Yeah, I always, I mean, I keep pictures of Shri Krishna in the kitchen for prasadam, or like I keep, in the rooms, Radha Krishna and baby Krishna. Um, um, I
You
guess
have, do
when
you have an altar? No altar?
um
I mean, do you understand altar? Altar for Krishna.
yes, yes, yes. So I'm thinking if it is the um a specific one. Um, I have, I have deities, but and um maybe not the specific ones like the temple, not like that.
So, you
Uh,
can share the photos of your deities and then, we can discuss how you can, arrange everything. Okay?
mhm. Okay, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, perfect. Thank you so much for your association. And with this, we have completed our second verse today. And in our next session, we will start with our new verse, Krishna's way. So, we'll stop here now. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki,
Jai,
Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.